Obviously, these are hard issues, and obviously, compromise and an agreement will depend on each side being willing to accept some tough choices. And we believe that's possible.
Those who are calling for tax hikes as a part of these debt discussions either have amnesia about the fate of similar proposals just 6 months ago, when Democrats controlled both chambers of Congress by very large margins, as well as the White House, or they're acting in bad faith, since we all know that including massive job-killing tax hikes would be a poison pill.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell just wrapped up a meeting at the White House with President Obama. We're told it lasted a little more than an hour. Earlier in the day, the president met with the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and the White House press secretary said the president told him that everyone in the room believed a significant deal remains possible. What about all of this? Let's bring in our panel. Bill Kristol, editor of the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard, associate editor of The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Bill.
Well, it's nice that Mitch McConnell met with President Obama. I hope they had a good talk, but maybe the rest of us could be clued in as to what they're discussing. This is kind of important. You know, we do have a tradition in this country that things are debated in Congress and in the media, and if legislation is going to be proposed, there are committee hearings. And the Republican House passed a budget just the way they're supposed to, and that was much debated. And now we're having this discussion about something that's even bigger, apparently, in scale, potentially on the House Republican budget, and it's all behind closed doors. I really think it's bizarre. At the end, I understand at the end of the day in negotiations you have to go into a room and cut some deals, but could we at least see what the proposals are? Could President Obama suggest what he thinks is the appropriate set of cuts to and tax increases to accompany the debt ceiling increase if it's going to happen? I really think I'm really now against all these closed door negotiations.
You know, A.B., we talk about the sausage making up on Capitol Hill. It does take some time to put things into legislation. If you're going to meet this August 2nd deadline, most people will say something has to happen this week before the July 4th break in order to get it all done.
Right, because they anticipate with this drop-dead deadline of August 2, they have all the devil in the details. Negotiating really has to happen. Putting everything on paper is the hardest part. It has to happen sort of between July 4th and August 2, and we don't know if they're gonna meet that deadline. I mean, to some extent, I think Bill is right. The parties agreed, I was told, both the Senate Minority Leader and the White House, to not divulge what happened at today's meeting. What we do know is this: tax hikes, the Bush tax cuts are off the table. Pentagon cuts are on the table, and some business breaks might end up being phased out. Republicans might give on that, but Medicare and Medicaid, against the better wishes of the Democratic caucus in the Congress, is on the table. What we don't know is
cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, but not a significant reform of any kind.
No, but they're going to look for savings there. It is not sacrosanct and off the table, which is what the Democrats have been asking, and Pelosi, the former House Speaker and current Minority Leader, has been demanding that stays holy and that she has a part in this negotiation. So far, she doesn't. What we don't know is about the timing and the amount. Republicans continue to tell me one vote to raise the debt ceiling is too many. I will not do it twice. And so this idea that you only scratch up to 1.7 trillion and not close to 3 doesn't get you through the next election. Republicans demand that the increase be smaller than the cuts. How are we going to get to this massive amount in the next 5 days? Where is the outline for a deal that is more than $2 trillion? And that doesn't, at this point, seem promising.
Charles.
I'm not sure that we do have a 5-day or 1-week deadline, because you can have a negotiation on principle, or at least outlines, right up to midnight August the 1st, which I think is a phony date nonetheless. But let's assume it's a drop-dead date. And then you can have a short-term rise in the debt limit for a week or two, a month or two, as happened in the budget negotiations, to tide you over while the language is being written. So they actually have a month. But I think the real news of this, just the thing you hadn't expected that has come out, is the report, as A.B. just mentioned, that Republicans are open to defense cuts as a way to satisfy Democratic desires. I think it is something new and disturbing. There are already isolationist tendencies among the Republicans expressed on the Libya and Afghanistan operations, although in those cases you can argue that people have misgivings about the benefits of these operations or about their chances of success. But if you want to cut the defense budget after we have heard from Obama's own Secretary of Defense 6 months ago that say a 10% cut would be a catastrophe, what you are doing is voting against American strength abroad. It would satisfy Ron Paul. It would make Reagan become, would be absolutely appalled and disappointed that Republicans are the ones who are looking to diminish Americans' reach and power.
But if I could just, I mean, I very much agree with it, that substantively, but think about the process here. The President of the United States submitted a budget based on a huge amount of staff work of this is what we need to spend at the Defense Department. The House Republicans then passed a budget which actually had the same number for defense spending, based on a considerable amount of expertise at the House Armed Services Committee and by other staffers and outside consultants. And now they're all sitting in a room and saying, well, I think we could do $100 billion. Maybe I could do $200 billion. Let's hit some artificial number. That is no way to make public policy, especially about something as sensitive as the Defense Department's budget. So the whole process is really wrong, I think.
But the question is whether there's enough to negotiate on other items. If you take the defense and the Pentagon off of the table, then where do you pick up the other money, Charles?
Well, that's true. Look, even if you did all the defense cuts, a 10% cut is $50 billion. You could do that for what? For 30 years. That $50 billion, you could collect all that money. It wouldn't cover 1 year of Obama deficit spending. That's not where the money is. But the money isn't in that or the oil, the tax breaks the oil companies are getting, which is $2 billion a year. The money is in entitlements. And unless the Democrats are willing to do something important on entitlements, we're not going to get anywhere on this. That, I think, is the ultimate red line. And I think Obama has decided he doesn't want to touch entitlements in a significant way because demagoguing entitlements and Medicare is the way he gets reelected.
Next up, the 2012 race and Michelle Bachmann's official entry today.